This is a video recording about me working through all the problems from the notes on January 25th. So we're going to solve this problem. This is number 2A, hard ones, give them a try. I solve h equals 2 over a minus b, solve for a. I'm going to start by multiplying both sides by a minus b. H quantity a minus b equals 2, because that equals 1. Now, let's say that we distribute the h. Remember, we want to solve for a, so I'm going to add hb to both sides. That gives me ha equals 2 plus hb. Divide by h. And now we have a, because that makes 1, equals 2 plus hb all over h. And that's a perfectly fine solution. You might want to simplify this way, 2 over h plus hb over h. You can do that as well. Just notice that you have to divide the 2 by h as well as the hb by h. Either one of those is fine. Let's say you wanted to solve it a different way. Well, here's the equation. So let's again multiply both sides by a minus b. What if you just left it this way? Divided both sides by h, a minus b equals 2 over h, add b to both sides, and you get a equals 2 over h plus b. Now if you back the video up, you'll see that that's the same equation that we got using the distributive property in this step right here. Okay, let's look at the next problem. So we're on solve p equals 4m plus 7mn for m. To solve this for m, notice that both these terms have a factor of m, so we need to factor an m out of both terms, 4 plus 7n. Now we want to solve for m. We have p equals m times some number, so we divide both sides by that number. And we have solved for m. Now let's go through these applications of percent. A lot of times people like to think about of means to multiply. Now that's not always true, and we'll see some examples of that later, but it's a good rule of thumb. Is translates to the equal sign. That one's usually true. What number or what percent? I like X. You can call it any letter you like, some unknown. Percent means 1 over 100 or 0.01. So let's translate 13% of 80 is what number? Well, 13%, so this really means times 1 over 100 or times 0.01. So I'm going to write this as 13 times 1 over 100. Then I want to take that of 13% of 80. I want to multiply 13 times 1 over 100 by 80. Is equals what number is x? Remember, this is 13 over 1 times 1 over 100. 13 over 100 times 80 over 1, if you like, equals x. Now, we have x. We just need to write it in simplest form. So 13 times 80, notice that I can write 80 is 8 times 10, and 100 is 10 times 10. That's a factor of 1. So now I have 13 times 8 over 10 equals x. And now, if I find the product of 13 and 8 and divide by 10, dividing by 10 is just moving the decimal point one place to the left. So I'm going to multiply here, 13 times 8. Well, I know that that's 4 ones and 2 tens. 8 times 1 is 8. 2 more, 10. 104 divided by 10 equals x equals 10.4. Now, I want you to read this back to yourself at the end. So, and this is a decimal point. It's kind of hard to see that. 13% of 80 is what number? 10.4. All right, let's try another one. What number is 60% of 70? Let me move this up a bit. What number is 60% of 70? So, what number, that's x, is equals 60%, 60 over 100, 60 times 1 over 100, of 70, multiply. And so I have x. I just have to write this in simplest form. 6 over 10, 60 over 100 is the same as 6 over 10, times 70 over 1, if you like. 6 times 7 times 10 over 10, 6 times 7 is 42. So what number is 60% of 70? That number, 42. Let's look at the next one. 43 is 20% of what number? 43 is 20%, I know that means 20 over 100, of, multiplied by the unknown number x. Now, to find x, we have to actually do a little bit of algebra. But instead of multiplying, let's start by simplifying this fraction. This is 2/10 times x. Now, I know if I multiply both sides by 10, I get 430 is 2 x's. And then I can divide by 2, and I get 215 equals x. So, 43 is 20% of what number? 215. I hope that you're doing that when you work through these problems. Answer the question that's asked with your solution. See if it makes sense. Another, why not? 16 is what percent of 80? Well, let's take a look. 16 equals x percent of 80. So I know that 16 x percent means x over 100 times 80. If you like, write it as 80 over 1. 16, I'm going to simplify this, x times 8 times 10, or 10 times 10. So I have 16 equals 8/10 x. So now I can multiply both sides by 10. 160 equals 8x. And I know that 8 times 20 is 160. So 160 divided by 8 must be 20. 20 equals x. But now, read the question again. 16 is what percent of 80? 16 is 20% of 80. You see how important it is to answer the question that was asked with your solution to see if it makes sense? I know. Sounds like a good time. One more on this page. B. what percent of 94 is 10.5. So x percent, that's the unknown, of is multiply, in this case 94, equals 10.5. So x percent, that means x divided by 100 times 94 equals 10.5. And now we know that x times 94 has to be equal to 1050 because we multiplied by 100. That moves the decimal point 2 places to the right. Now we divide by 94, and x is 1050, all divided by 94. So I'm going to write this up here. X equals, well, you can't see it, so I probably won't write it there. X equals, that's better, 1050 over 94. But now let's talk about how to simplify this without a calculator. We can start by noticing that both of these numbers are even. So 2 times 525, 2 times 47. And so we can eliminate a factor of 1. And so we have 525 over 47. And now we can go ahead and use long division. 47 is the divisor, 525 is the dividend. And I can make one group of 47 with 52 things. Now I subtract 5, bring down my 5, and I can make one group of 47 with 55 things. 15 minus 7 is 8. Now notice that this is the ones place, so this is the tenths place. So now I'm going to write a 0 and bring that down, and I'm going to put the decimal point right there in my quotient. And now 47, I can only make one group of 47 with 80. 33, okay. Now I want to do this to the nearest 10th percent just because your My Math Lab homework often asks for them to the nearest 10th percent. So that means I need 2 more digits so I know how to round. No, just kidding, I only need 1 more digit. Okay, so bring down another 0, 330, 47 times 10 is too big. That would be 470. Let's try 47 times 5, I already know what that is. It's half of 470, which is 235. I know that I can make at least 5 groups of 47, so I know that this digit will be a 5 or larger, which means that to the nearest tenth of a percent, what percent of 94 is 10.5? 11.2%. And then again, that is to the nearest tenth of a percent. Okay. Let's move on to this standard form bit. Oh, I guess I need that still. That's right. Times 1 over 100 or times 0.01. Now, this, on the notes, I had this formula, amount equals percent number times base. And this can be used to solve any percent problem as long as you identify the amount and the percent number and the base correctly. So let's look at the examples from C. We have what percent of 76 is 19. So what percent of 76? I'm taking a percent of 76. That means 76 is the base. The amount, I take some percent of 76 and get 19, that's the amount. And the percent number is unknown, so let's call it x. 19 equals x percent of 76. So we divide by 76, and that's x percent. And now I'm going to think about, well, I know that 4 times 20 is 80, and then if I take away 4, I get 76. So that tells me that 19 over 76 is equal to 1 over 4. So that's x percent, but then we know that that is the same as 25 over 100 equals x percent, because I can multiply this by 25 and this by 25. So therefore, 25% of 76 is 19. All right. 45 is 30% of what number? So 45 is 30%, so 30% is the percent number. We take percentages of a base and we get an amount. So x is the base and the amount is 45. Now, 45 amount equals 30% times our unknown. Now, how are we going to simplify this? Like so, 45 equals 30 over 100 times x. And now I know that 45, I can rewrite this as 3/10 times x. And now I can multiply both sides by 10, and that makes 450 equals 3x. And now I can divide by 3, and this is all fairly doable without a calculator. It may take some practice, but it's certainly better than multiplying 45 by 100 and then dividing by 30. So I know that 150 times 3 is 450. Therefore, x equals 150. Now let's go back and read our sentence. 45 is 30% of what number? 45 is 30% of 150. Okay, so I'm going to finish recording the rest of the notes in a second video, so be looking for that. Okay, so we're picking up on January 25th notes. We're on page 2, and this is bullet D. What is the amount when computing percent increase decrease? So you'll recall that we've been talking about this amount equals percent number times base as a way to solve percent problems. And we can solve any percent problem using this formula, amount equals percent number times base. We just have to be careful about what each of these unknowns represents. So if we look at a percent decrease problem, the amount is not going to be any one of these particular numbers. It's going to be the difference between these two numbers. So the number of fans declined from 2.2 million. Amount equals 2.2 million minus 1.5 million equals 1.2, 0.7 million. That's the amount. It's the distance between where we started and where we ended. So that's our amount. A equals PB, amount equals percent number times base. 0.7 million equals P percent. We don't know the percent. And we're going to multiply that by the base, which in a percent increase or decrease problem will always be where we started. We started at 2.2 million. So to find P percent, we divide both sides by 2.2 million. And we know that million is multiplying by 10 6 times. Same thing here. So we can, that makes a factor of 1. 10 factors of 6. 6 factors of 10 divided by 6 factors of 10 just makes a 1. So we have 0.7 divided by 2.2 equals P percent. Now, if I multiply that by 10 and that by 10, that doesn't change this number. So I have 7 divided by 22 equals P percent. So now all I have to do is some long division. I'm going to write over here. 22 is the divisor, 7 is the dividend, and I can't make any groups of 22 with 7, so I'm going to write a 0 in the ones place and put my decimal point down, and I know that I can make 3 groups of 22 and get 66, leaving me with 4 things. Now I'm going to bring down a 0. I can make 1 group of 22 with 40. That makes 18, so let me erase this. And now we have, bring down another 0, because notice, I know that it's something about 31%, but if I wanted to round this to the nearest tenth, which is pretty typical for your My Math Lab homework, I need 2 more digits. 22 times 9 is going to be too big, so let's try 22 times 8. 8 times 20 is 160, plus 16 is 176. There's 4, and now notice when I express this as a percent, it'll be 31.8, but if I want to round to the nearest tenth, I need to know what this digit is, so I know if I should keep the 8 or round up. And so now I put 1 0, bring it down, 1 group of 22 makes a 1, so I know that this digit's a 1, so I know that over here, 0.3181 is p%, which means 31.8% equals p. So the percent decrease in Steven Seagal fans is to the nearest tenth of a percent, 31.8%. All right, this is the next problem on January 25th notes, part D, II. In 1983, we had 2.3 million registered members of the Chuck Norris fan club. I didn't write the Lone Wolf McQuade reference, but if you are interested, you can look it up. This number increased to 3.6 million in 1984. What is the percent increase? We can still use amount equals percent times base. Ooh, sorry. Maybe I should write that so you can see it. What a concept. So amount is going to be the difference between where we started and where we ended. 3.6 million minus 2.3 million equals 1.3 million. Percent number is X. Percent, we don't know what the percent increase is. The base is where we started, which is at 3.6 million. 1.3 million is the amount A, X percent times 3.6 million. So then to solve for X percent, we divide by 3.6 million. So that means X percent equals, and if we know that we get this, and we can actually rewrite this as 13 over 36, since we can multiply the numerator and denominator both by 10, and now we just need to work out the quotient, and I'm going to use long division. So 36 is the divisor, 13 is the dividend. I see that I can't make any groups of 36 with 13, so and let me move that so the glare is out of the way. That's better. Now, 0 groups of 36 and 13, but I can make numerous groups of 36 with 130. I'm thinking, let's try 4. 36 times 4. 4, carry the 2, 144. Okay, that was too big. 36 times 3 should be 18, 108. 36 times 3 is 108. Subtract. And I'm left with 22. Bring down a 0. And I know that 36, now I'm looking for how many 36 can go and fit into 220. So I know it's more than 4, So let's try 36. I don't want to write that there. 36 times 6. 6, carry the 3, 216. That looks like a good amount. 216, 4. And now I need a couple more digits to round to the nearest tenth of a percent. One group of 36. And now I can see that I'll have another 1 in the quotient. So I know that this is to the nearest tenth of a percent equals 0.3611. Therefore, x is 36.1%. So what is the percent increase in members of the Chuck Norris fan club? 36.1%. Okay, so we're working on January 25th notes, part E. We have Chuck Norris tipped Steven Seagal a $1.50 tip for a meal that cost $12. So what percent of the cost of the meal was the tip, and what was the total cost of the meal including the tip? So we can use amount. There it is. Amount equals percent number times base to solve this. So we can identify that the amount is $1.50. The percent is unknown. Let's call it X. The base is the cost of the meal without the tip. And so that's $12. 150 equals X percent of 12. Divide both sides by 12. So we know that we can find that quotient with long division. 12 on 50. We can make 0 groups of 12 with 1. There we go. Put my decimal point in. Then I can make 1 group of 12 with 15, and I subtract, leaving me with 3. I bring down the 0. 2 times 12 is 24, leaving me with 6. 12 times 5 is 60. 0 remainder. So I know that 0.125 equals X percent. 12.5% equals X, because X percent always means X over 100. To solve for X, we multiply both sides by 100. So we know that X is 12.5%. So this was a 12.5% tip. To compute the total cost of the meal, including the tip, we add the $1.50 to the $12 and we get $13.50. Okay, we're on the last problem on January 25th notes. So we see that Peter left an 18% tip of $6.75 for his Pawtucket Patriot Ales at the Drunken Clam. And we first want to know what was the cost of the ales before the tip, and then the total cost of the ales including the tip. So let's start by looking at what we know. We know that the percent is 18%, and we know that the amount is $6.75. The base is unknown, but notice here that amount equals percent times base. It's going to look just a little bit different, because if we stop and think about it, we know that to leave an 18% tip, we have to compute 18% of whatever we paid, and that is unknown. So we have to compute 675, there's our A. The percent is 18%. The base is X. So notice we're not finding 18% of $6.75, because that's going to give us a number that's smaller than $6.75. We tip on the amount that we paid for our food at a restaurant. And so since that is unknown, we use X as the unknown. And now to solve, I'm going to write 18% as 18 divided by 100. And then I am going to multiply both sides by 100. That makes a factor of 1. So, and I move the decimal 2 places to the right to get 675 equals 18x. Divide both sides by 18. And I now know that x equals 675 divided by 18. And that will tell me the cost of the ales before the tip. Now, before you reach for a calculator, look at 675. We know that 6 plus 7 plus 5 is 18, and that means that's a number that's divisible by 9, because the sum of the digits is divisible by 9. So I know that 675 is divisible by 9. So 9 times 7 is 63. 9 times 5 is 45. So I know that this is 9 times 75 over 9 times 2, and I can eliminate that factor of 1. And so now I know that x, the cost of the ales before the tip, is half of 75, which is $37.50. So the total cost including the tip is $675 plus $37.50. So for part B, $37.50 plus $675, $44.25 was the total cost including the tip.